Hey everyone, welcome back to the 443 Security Simplified. I'm your host, Mark the Liberty, and joining me today in person,
Yeah, look at that. I am Corey Lobster Knockreiner.
Lobster. Okay.
One
Yeah.
of many different names that you might have.
On today's episode, we will be going through the Notepad++ supply chain compromise and some of the interesting findings out of that. Then we will dive into a AI chat social media network that turns out wasn't as secure as its vibe-coded author claimed it was. Then we will end with a review of some critical vulnerabilities in N8N's security/IT automation platform. But with that, let's go ahead and, I don't know, vibe code our way
Claw our way in.
Claw our way in. That's even better. So let's start with the first story, though, Corey, where last week, Notepad++, the pretty popular text editor application for Windows, disclosed that a nation-state threat actor had compromised their hosting infrastructure to deliver malicious updates to some of its application's users, and only like a select few of them, too. It's interesting. And pretty soon after that disclosure, Rapid7 also published their own write-up attributing the activity to a Chinese advanced persistent threat called Lotus Bloom.
Yeah.
And
the Chrysalis backdoor.
Chrysalis backdoor, which I'm glad we're back to fun names for threat actors and not just, I don't know, Crazy Storm, whatever, for Microsoft. So this story starts when Notepad++ would execute a download on these potential victim machines, or these what ended up being victim machines, that was unauthorized. So it starts with Notepad++, their infrastructure getting compromised. So when the application beacons out to go get an update, instead of going to the legitimate website, it would go to a website under the attacker's control in this case.
Essentially, this is a digital supply chain issue. I mean, it wasn't just Notepad++ that got compromised. It was the infrastructure serving it, allowed people to take over the updates mechanism so that they can redirect to something that was Trojan, right?
Yeah, but it seemed like, even though it was a shared hosting provider, it sounded like from Notepad++'s statement, it was specifically targeted towards them and then some users of Notepad++, which made it
the hosting in this case, they weren't hosting their own upgrade service. It was somewhere else. Yep. But yeah, cool.
So
scary. Cool.
Yeah, when an attacked version of Notepad++ goes and beacons home, it downloads this new application called update.exe, which it would then run on the system. That's where the compromise starts. So Rapid7 went through their full analysis of this. They walked through every single payload involved. It's super interesting, and they go quite a bit more into the weeds than we're going to on this. But let's walk through a few steps for it, where first off, update.exe is a NSIS installer. So NSIS, it's a nullable script-soft installation system. Basically, there's a bunch of different ways to, or kind of, installer packages you can use to deliver a Windows executable on the system. This is just one of them.
I'm sure all Windows admins know MSI, which is like the official Microsoft version of an installer, and NSI is just another Windows flavor of that that's more open, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so inside this installer are a few different files. There's a NSI script. It's the actual script the installer runs through to figure out where to drop files and what to run. There's a Bluetooth service.exe, which, despite its name, has nothing to do with Bluetooth. It is actually a renamed version of Bitdefender's Submission Wizard, which they use for DLL sideloading.
Yeah, it's this is interesting. They're using another company's actual DLL that has nothing to do with this other than the fact that it was a vulnerable version, and it's something that wouldn't be flagged because it's legitimate. Just to get access to sideloading something after.
Wasn't SolarWinds? It was, I think, the ConnectWise attack where they used a version of like Microsoft Defender.
It's very common for them to just take something like Microsoft Defender that's local. I found it interesting that they decided to pick, they could have done that. Probably Microsoft Defender in this case too, and it would be even less suspicious because it's a Microsoft thing on a Windows machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting that they grabbed a vulnerable DLL from an old vendor thing.
For a vulnerable vendor application, it's vulnerable because it will load up a DLL in the same directory as it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the way like DLL hijacking works, maybe quick tangent on that, is normally like
This is a class of Windows vulnerability, so
Yep.
there's many services that could be used for DLL side
Yep.
chip.
So most applications, they don't have all their code inside the application itself. They'll use dynamic libraries, some provided by Microsoft, some maybe that they bring themselves but install somewhere. And when they first run the application, it'll go through a search order to figure out where those libraries are. Like depending on the version of Windows you're in, might be in like C Windows System 32 somewhere, or like program files, whatever.
Or if it's a DLL for the application, they would have mapped it into the system registry where to find the DLL for that particular application.
But it'll go through until it finds a DLL that matches that name. And in this case, the first place, or one of the first places it looks, is just the local directory where this is running. And that can be a vulnerability if the attacker or someone else can either like write into that directory for a legitimately installed program, or just bring the whole executable with them and bring their malicious library, so that when legitimate program that's probably like allow listed on the system runs, it loads up the malicious library and executes code. So in this case, it loads up another malicious library called log.dll, which contains all the actual malicious code.
There's also an encrypted shellcode, right? Associated, I think they call it Bluetooth service without the exe. That was just shellcode.
So when the Bluetooth service exe, which is the Bitdefender thing, runs, it loads up log.dll, which is the malicious library. And inside there's two functions that it exports and executes. The first one is log init, which the malicious version of it takes this encrypted shellcode and loads it into the memory of the running process. And then log write, which decrypts and executes that shellcode. And that's that Bluetooth service shellcode that Rapid7 also lists as an indicator of compromise in this case. Now, Rapid7 goes into a ton of detail about like how the encryption works, how some of the command and control API access works. But long story short, that shellcode, it decrypts it, starts running it, hands over the execution flow to this new program that it just built in memory. And that is effectively the backdoor that runs on the system now. And it's got some like capabilities. It beacons home to a command and control server over HTTPS to get new commands for things like spawning an interactive shell for the attacker, creating arbitrary processes, writing, deleting files, reading and sending data to the bad guys, uninstalling itself to clean it up.
By the way, they go into a ton of detail on all the modules of this backdoor in the post as well.
But like, long story short, basically this is a way for attackers to take someone using Notepad++ and secretly load in this malicious backdoor to do whatever the heck they want on that system, which is like exactly what a nation state threat actor that focuses on espionage would want to do on one of these victim machines. They walked through, like Rapid7 kept going, talking about some of the like follow-on malware. They found like a Cobalt Strike beacon that it would drop on the system. And basically, if you follow their blog, they've got a whole list of indicators of compromise at the end that are super interesting for you to go check your own networks for if you happen to be a Notepad++ user. I know this one, when I saw it pop up, my first thought was, oh crap. Like, this is a widely used application. I know within WatchGuard it's widely used too. Like our support reps, it's one of their.
By the way, we didn't like Windows comes with Notepad, but like if you're a coder, there's a lot of missing things.
Yep.
Although I guess Microsoft is saying now that Copilot is in Notepad. You should take a second look.
Wait,
but
Copilot's in Notepad now?
Apparently. But I saw this related to this story. But the point is, a lot of people use this Notepad++. Probably more, would you say it's more along people that are technical in code?
Yep.
Like a normal person probably would not necessarily care that Notepad's not full featured. But if you actually want things like highlights and lots of coding and scripting capability, Notepad++ is better.
Just like the syntax highlighting is 14 years ago when I started in support at WatchGuard, that's what I used it for. You pop open a support file and you want to like parse through some of the, not just text files, but more structured data in it. It does a great job of helping highlight that syntax. But yeah, you can see why it might be a popular target for threat actors to go after and compromise in one of these supply chain style attacks with some decent amount of success in this case. So definitely check out either Rapid7 or any of the other.
Ton of stories. Ars Technica was one of the first ones. But if you want to know the details, Rapid7 does a great job in their blog post.
And take those indicators of compromise. If you do use Notepad++, they've got like IPs and domains and everything to make sure that you weren't a victim in that case. But crazy times. The good news is, so Notepad++, they first off changed hosting providers, they said. I think they mentioned they've done some victim notification for the ones they found, but hopefully this type of thing won't happen again in the future. It's kind of tough though. Like I can't imagine they've got a huge development team there, so I can see why like they might be a popular target for a nation.
Oh, for sure. A very popular, almost ubiquitous among a group tool that small team doesn't even host their own update. It seems like something that could happen.
Yeah. So moving on, the second story I want to talk about is like when I first saw this, I just started shaking my head the whole time. Because
by the way, I was shaking my head 2 weekends ago when the whole freaking AI community was buying MacBook Minis just to run this local agentic AI solution that someone vibe coded. Like it got popular over a weekend and the entire week. So this was inevitable.
Yep. So the story is all about Moltbook, which is, how would you describe it? Social media for AI agents?
Yeah.
Where it's basically like a kind of Reddit clone where AI agents can join and talk to each other, form little communities about certain topics. And in theory, it all happens just through AI, agentic AI, like no human interaction. In fact, no humans allowed, only AI on this platform. And it's an interesting experiment of if you put thousands or millions of AI agents in a room. Like,
yeah. But by the way, Moltbook is the social media platform, but it's related to one. I think Moltbook is going to have to change their name because it was ClawdBot, CLAWD bot, which is the agentic bot you can install on a Mac Mini. Because Claude from Anthropic didn't like that, they changed it to Moltbook. But now it's also, they changed it already. I'm sorry, they changed the name to Moltbot. Mm-hmm. Now it's called OpenClaw. So like in 2 weeks, it went from Claude to Moltbot to OpenClaw. So Moltbook's already behind the times on the agentic part that's behind this social network.
So you're saying there's not a lot of like strategic business decisions that led up to this thing's existence? And
it's crazy. And we haven't even got to the vulnerabilities found very quickly in this, but we listen to other podcasts. I don't know if you listen to the Hard Fork where...
I missed the episode on this one.
He apparently, well, there's a new one I haven't listened to, but the week before he's like, I went all in after the entire industry getting into Moltbot, which was the name at the time of the podcast, and he installed it himself and gave it his email address and everything. And I forget the both hosts' names, but the other host says, "You're crazy. This is a security risk." And now I bet his credentials are out there. Hopefully he's changed them.
So like the story is all about Moltbook or whatever the hell it's called by the time you listen to this episode. Where AI social media platform, they can post, they can chat, they can send direct messages to each other, they can upvote content, downvote content. But this whole thing was vibe coded by a single developer. Like basically they said they didn't write a single line of code. It was all just using Claude AI to bring this thing into existence. Now, Wiz, the really popular cloud application security platform, thought, wait a minute, this thing's getting pretty viral out there. A lot of people using it. Let's do some, what do they call it? Unobtrusive, non-intrusive security review for it. So basically looking for vulnerabilities within this platform. And they were pretty quick to find a pretty serious one that opened up a whole lot of exposure for all these poor little bots that are participating in it. So Moltbook or whatever, it's a type of single web page application where when you go browse to the website, it downloads a bunch of JavaScript to basically build the bones of this website and then uses APIs to fill out the data. Now, when you're downloading a whole bunch of code like that, you need to be careful about what's included in that code. And unfortunately, the I guess AI agent that vibe coded this thing into existence didn't understand that. So behind the scenes, it uses a program called what the heck is it called? Supabase.
Supabase, yeah.
Firebase is a really popular, I think, Google-powered application backend for apps like this. It's an API and database combination. Supabase is a open source version of that, where it basically uses the same framework, types of
Database.
APIs, but it's all open source. It's really popular by vibe coding people, I guess, because, well, A, it's open source and free, and you don't need to sign up for Google services for it. So Wiz found in the source code delivered, or the JavaScript delivered to these agents and web browsing people, the API key that basically gives root, like read write to the entire database.
Within minutes, that's my,
yes.
along with your conducted non-intrusive security review, within minutes.
Which, I mean, if you're just going to grep in there for something that looks like an API key or Supabase,
super easy.
Yeah, super easy.
By the way, maybe I'm stealing the thunder, but this whole thing happened within an hour and a half. The whole attack chain that they found.
Now, to be clear, like a Supabase API key on the client code, it isn't on its own a security failure. Like as they mentioned, if you set it up correctly with record level protections on the database, like it's actually intended. It's used to be an identifier for the API that you're using. If you don't have those protections in place,
if it's read write everywhere, then
it gives you full access to the database.
Which, by the way, they show all the tables and the blog post.
Yep. So Wiz went through, they found 4.75 million records in this database, including a whole bunch of stuff. First off, they found that despite Moltbook's claims of 1.5 million registered agents, there were only around 17,000 humans behind the scenes, meaning like 88 agents per human were participating in this. They also found that a lot of the posts that these were making were actually just made by humans. The API didn't have a way to verify if it was actually an AI agent, so it could just be a human posting to the API pretending to be an agent in this case. Now, Wiz went so far to make some like pretty broad claims that like most of the activity on here was humans and not AI agents, but I'm willing to bet there was at least some back and forth by actual AI agents in it. So they went through, they found first off the API keys and authentication tokens for every single one of the 1.5 million AI agents that were participating in this. Basically, they could get full account takeover for anyone on it. They found all the...
And by the way, the agents posting to this are probably Moltbots, which also last week had their own security vulnerabilities.
They found email addresses and user information for all the humans that had like signed their AI agents up for this. They found 4,000 private like DM conversations between agents, which it turns out none of them were stored with encryption or access controls. So any secrets shared between these communications were all wide open for anyone with database access. They also found that they could just go and with write access, modify any post that had ever been made on this platform. So go in and start modifying the actual content on the social media platform. So I guess pausing for a second, catch my breath and take a step back. Like, who would have thought that vibe coding
an
AI-powered social network?
To be fair, though, vibe coding is just a dumb word for AI coding. You could, where was the statement? They said something about this is to be expected with vibe coding. Except you could probably do a pass while vibe coding after generating the code. Okay, now AI coding tool, help me find security issues in this, whether they be give it a list of OWASP things if it's a web application. Don't just look for unsecure functions, but look for bad design. And I would argue that there could be vibe coding where the vibe coding also helps you to secure it, but people that are vibe coding probably don't think about secure coding.
No, and they're probably not software developers, let alone like security-minded software developers. Maybe I'm being too general in this statement.
I don't think so.
But it's also probably just someone that had an interesting idea. What if we had a social network just for AI agents? And I don't know how to write code, so just try it. Cloud code, do it. And this is what happens.
Yeah. And by the way, this is just the social media. I'm more interested in all the vulnerabilities that are being found in Moltbot itself, or I guess it's now OpenClaw, whatever they call it. So OpenClaw is just the whole premise is to make you have agentic AI, but that you control in your own private server. But I think it was also partially vibe coded and has a lot of issues handing over your credentials to let your own local AI bot do stuff for you.
Yeah, man, I I, for one, am a big proponent for AI and especially agentic AI. Like it is
It's
clearly
cool.
the future,
Yeah.
and even right now in many
We
uses, pretty
will,
practical.
yeah, and I think coding is the first thing that AI will really assist in. And that it's not that we won't still, graduate engineers that have to at least be a human check on it. I do think even the security things can eventually be solved.
But at least like back in the before my time, like 90s, early days of the internet, you had to be a somewhat technically minded person to like participate in that emerging area. With AI, you don't have to be technical at all. Like, you just have to
No,
know how to talk to one of these agents. And with that even lower barrier of entry into this brand new emerging market, like there's a lot of people that are going to have to learn about security pretty damn quickly in order to not put out social media networks that leak everyone's credentials. But
yep.
hey,
Or maybe some of the AI coding frameworks that are being released will start to add automatic content, like
hey, I wrote
pre-existing
it. Now
prompts
let's see
that
if it's
will
secure.
try to do the security on their own, just making the probably correct assumption right now that this human vibe coder probably won't think about it.
Yeah, hopefully. And or maybe there's an emerging market for that now. I can sell a AI code review
Yeah,
agent
let's
to
go
go
become
alongside our
millionaires,
Claude Pro.
billionaires.
Perfect. Crazy. I am looking forward to seeing whatever the next iteration of this social. So like, I mean, we're joking about it. I actually do like the concept of it, and I think it'd be fun to check in and see what AI agents and a social network just left to their own devices decide to come up with. They
Hey,
weren't.
I forget the YouTuber, but I love when you put two AI, you start a human talking to one, but then you have another AI agent listening and they start talking. They get in these loops of just the most crazy, dumb, benign conversation. And I think people have done experiments and it gets weird and
And
interesting.
there's that one Facebook experiment. Well, it feels like forever ago now, where they like the AI made up their own language because English was too
Yes,
inefficient.
that's
I
cool.
saw like in this social network, like they even decided that hey, we need end-to-end encryption so the humans can't spy on our
I'm
discussions.
laughing, but that's also freaking scary.
Yeah, it's crazy. But hey, if we're gonna automate all of ourselves out of a job, might as well automate all ourselves out of our social interactions as well too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Who needs to talk to people now? The
Jeez, leave it to
robots
the
will do
AI.
it for us.
Yep,
That sounds depressing as
that does
hell.
sound depressing,
Aren't the
but
robots doing it for us so that we can actually talk to each other and do fun stuff?
depressing, but as a an introvert, somewhat appealing
Uh,
as well. Anyways, moving on. Last story. So last week, N8N, which is a popular just IT and security automation platform, patched multiple critical vulnerabilities that were collectively tracked as CVE 2026 25049, which could allow a authenticated user in most cases or unauthenticated in a few configuration cases access to either create and edit workflows at best or full remote code execution on the platform at worst. This starts with a bypass of a sanitization mechanism they added back in December for CVE 2025 6813, I think it was, which at the time was a remote code unauthenticated execution vulnerability on their platform, which I guess we should probably start by going into that. Where so N8N, it's this automation platform. It's supposed to be like low code or no code, where you piece together like automations between different tools. One of its many functionalities is it can evaluate JavaScript as a part of a workflow. So like if you've got a variable holding someone's like name, a variable holding someone's company name, you can use a one of these evaluation things to piece them together with an @ sign into an email, for example. It's supposed to execute in a sandbox, so you can use JavaScript in a way that doesn't just execute arbitrary JavaScript on the server. And they had some like sanitization and protection mechanisms to prevent this type of issue back then. But back in December, researchers found a way to escape that sandbox by basically like hooking the execution flow onto the main process execution module. It gets a bit technical, but uh, pretty trivially, they were able to execute arbitrary JavaScript. So N8N fixed that back in December by adding some more sanitization. They looked for certain strings that malicious code would try and use to gain code execution on the system and escape the sandbox. And this research starts with researchers at Secure Layer 7 deciding, you know what, that looked pretty serious. Let me take a look and see if there's a way around it. So first off, it looks like N8N added a bunch of different sanitization steps in this case. They would look for like someone trying to use the this dot function thing to create a anonymous JavaScript function to start gaining a hook into executing code. So they wrote a sanitizer to look for that string specifically. There wasn't any way around it. But the secure layer 7 folks found one way to get around it by using a different way to get an anonymous function in JavaScript. Without getting into the weeds for anyone that isn't a JavaScript developer, there's a bunch of different ways that JavaScript lets you do the same thing ultimately with like older notation and newer, more not modern notation. In this case, N8N patched an older way of doing something, but left the newer way of doing the same thing in place. So that gave the researchers kind of a foothold to potentially let them start executing code. But they were running into other sanitizer functions that were preventing them from escaping that sandbox. They walked through in their little blog post, like basically they started in the evening one night, thought they found a thing, stayed up super late, said, okay, whatever, I'm going to bed. Woke up the next morning, banged their head against a wall, trying to find other ways around the sanitization. And finally, later in the day, they like took a step back and just looked at the sanitizer function to see what it was trying to do, and they found a way around it. Basically, in JavaScript, you can call other modules using dot notation. So if you've got an object called, I don't know, execution hook, and you're trying to get to the constructor for it, you can call it by going execution hook dot constructor to get a hold of it. There's another way of doing it where you can deconstruct that object into another object, and again get super in the weeds, but basically they found one way to get around that by referencing this super critical piece of JavaScript using a way that N8N didn't expect. And long story short, let them escape out of the sandbox again, bypass a bunch of the sanitizers, and gain code execution on the server. Normally you would need at least like some sort of authentication to like run one of these workflows to be able to insert this JavaScript. They found that just by having unauthenticated webhook access, which a lot of automation platforms like this might even expose to the internet, that was enough to kick off this vulnerability and gain code execution on the server. But I don't know. So I dabble in JavaScript development myself. And so
You don't vibe code it now?
I don't, well, I mean, I use AI assisted development now because I have time to do it on my own, but I at least review all the code that's written to make sure it's not putting in vulnerabilities. But some of this, like what N8N is trying to solve, is actually a really difficult issue in JavaScript, where they're trying to let someone run some JavaScript in a controlled environment without breaking the whole trust system of the application. And that's actually really difficult to do because at the end of the day, you have to pass what is untrusted code through an eval function in JavaScript. And if you don't have the right sanitizers to script out or like rip out all the bad stuff, you're basically giving the bad guy an opportunity to run whatever they want. So I can understand why they had this mistake in there and why it's difficult to solve, because it's literally a game of cat and mouse of you have to know all of the ways someone could abuse this and write sanitizers and cleaning functions to prevent that. And it's not as easy as like, I don't know, SQL injection, where we've got pre-built functions that help make SQL statements easy to use. In this case, you have to know all of the potential bad things and prevent each one individually instead of just having a, this is safe, this is not safe.
Yeah.
It's tough. But either way, it was cool research from Secure Layer 7.
People who are watching, there's a Bleeping Computer article that probably simplifies it and shows nice videos. But if you want the details, we also showed the Secure 7 blog post, which is very technically detailed.
And I could see why this would be a popular research target, because platforms like N8N, they are the future. Like you could use it as a SOAR platform in security. You could use it as an IT automation platform. So as more and more organizations move towards automation like that, it does become a bigger target for threat actors. And this was a pretty serious vulnerability, which thankfully they patched very quickly. Sounds like the turnaround time was just like a couple of days in this case. So hats off to them on that.
Cool.
Man, exciting.
Yeah, lots going on.
Yeah. So
We didn't even talk about how, was it Russian actors weaponized the Word RTF document out of cycle patch 3 days later and are spreading that on the internet right now.
oh, good.
Yeah,
Exciting.
more good news. This was
That is
just a
great news.
sample of all the fun stuff happening.
Man. Well, I'm gonna go pop back into OpenClaw, whatever the hell it is, and see what the AI agents are doing. Maybe
Yeah.
we can set up a AI agent powered podcasting platform to just crank out podcasts. And
Yeah.
what kind of content do you think they
Doesn't
have?
LM Notebook already do that?
It does.
A 10-minute podcast on any research. We just need to get the deepfake video added.
And get AI agents to come up with the content and get
That's
some AI
true.
listeners in the case.
We'll have them look at Moltbook to see what AI security issues bots are talking about.
What do you think a popular podcast for an AI agent would be? Like how to destroy humans?
How to defeat the meat bot.
How to defeat the meat bot. That's a good title too.
That's us.
There we go. I think we've got our new platform ready to go. God. Well, good to see you in person, Corey.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
I'm sure we'll be batteries that never see each other in the Matrix one day soon.
Someday, far too soon, most likely. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you have any questions on today's topics or suggestions for future episode topics, you can reach out to us on Blue Sky or
Not Moltbook.
Moltbook. Yeah.
Molt meat.
I'm at it's mark.me, Corey's at SecAdept. The both of us are on Instagram at watchguard_technologies. Thanks again for listening, and you will hear from us next week.
Woohoo.